It's Carol Yours with Sheila Henshaw with our fourth tea break session. And what we thought we'd look at today was returning to work. The next steps really from lockdown, and we wanted to help to prepare you. There's lots of information being put out on if you're running an office or in charge of something, how to organise, but nobody's really looked at how to prepare yourself, and that's what we were going to look at. So thanks for joining me, Carol.
Thanks, Sheila.
So lots of us have been working from home for the last 3 to 4 months and had to make huge adjustments to be able to do that. I just wondered how you felt about how we could improve things, Carol, for people out there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Sheila, because for the last 3-4 months, many of us have been used to working from home, and we've now kind of adjusted back to a change. So we've kind of accepted the new change, and now suddenly we're going back to work. In many cases, that could be that we're going back in the self-employment world, or maybe back to the office. I think it's quite important that we consider our own attitude and our own mental well-being on that.
Definitely. A part of that is building our own confidence, isn't it, as well? Because things have changed and we've got to accept those changes. So what sort of things can we do to prepare ourselves, really? I think it's about getting ourselves ready for this, for the next steps.
Well, I think it's really important, first and foremost, to think safety first. Be sure that wherever you go, whether it's to work or in somebody else's environment, that you are aware that they've made and done and completed a risk assessment of the environment. So in some cases, ask to see it, or pick up the phone, or Zoom, because we're all very used to Zoom now, and just make sure that the changes that are required by the government have been put into place, and that you are returning to a safe and healthy environment. And I think secondly, Sheila, it's doing that risk assessment on yourself, doing your own personal risk assessment. How am I feeling? What changes do I need to make? And making sure that you're not in the vulnerable group that actually might not be a safe bet at this moment in time, going, outside of a safe environment.
Yeah, so you're sort of thinking about if you've been shielding for the benefit of somebody else that you've been looking after, considering that moving forward, isn't it? It's really important.
Yeah, very much. And I think you're absolutely spot on there.
Okay, that's good. What other steps then do we need to think about? I know we went to the office today to get the office ready for the next steps, and it was quite a strange sort of feeling. What about the actual journey? Is there anything that we can do to prepare ourselves?
Yeah, if we're talking about the actual journey to work, I think it's a good thing to now consider what's the best option to get to work, particularly if maybe you've got to travel some distance to, get to work. So, is it really now best to get in the car? Is it really better to get on the bus? Is it really to travel by train? Or if possible, is it a good option now to get ourselves even totally fit and buying ourselves a bike, etc.? So I think there's quite a lot of planning and preparation, and I think that's key. How do we safely get to the workplace? So that would be one of the things that I would now be considering, particularly if in the past you've shared lifts with people.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it? So those things that we've always done in the past, we're not automatically going to step back into those, and it's thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I think you're talking about planning, preparing. It's also about preparing the things in the office as well, being prepared to accept that things have changed when you get there. I know we talked about perhaps using our own reusable cups, just as one of those steps, that actually if you took your own reusable cup, you could then take it home, wash it in the dishwasher and bring it back the next day. Just little things like that about preparing yourself for those changes that you could make.
Yes,
Make you feel safer.
I think that's really important, because whichever environment your normal working conditions are, apart from now, of course, the norm has become in many cases working from home. It's really important that you consider that when you get into that environment that 3 or 4 months ago you were used to, that it will be different. And I think that's quite important. So preparing ourselves mentally is really important. And of course, that inner self-belief, have a can-do attitude, because suddenly we're going to be thrown into another change, and if we're not careful, that again can make us feel less confident and have less self-belief.
It's also important, isn't it, to talk to friends about how we feel and raise those concerns with friends and supportive people around us, because that will help us to build our inner self-belief as well.
Yes, it will do. Share those concerns with people that you're close to, because talking about it and considering it, and somebody might have some really good ideas. So yeah, don't be frightened to talk about how you're feeling, because there will be many people out there that are feeling exactly the same way. It's not something to not feel comfortable about, and it is a good thing always to share concerns.
Is there any other steps then that we can take? What about trialing at getting ourselves ready to change to the new situation?
Yeah, it's getting up at the same time as you would normally in the past go to work. Get out of those PJs and get yourself into that normal office attire. Wear work-like clothes, probably for at least a week, 10 days prior to getting back into the workplace. And then you won't feel quite so uncomfortable. It's like when you go on holiday, isn't it? You go on holiday for 2 weeks, if you're lucky enough. And sometimes it's very difficult then to adjust to get back into what I would call business or casual, smart casual type clothing. So start preparing yourself well in advance. It's around makeup, should you wear it. It's around making sure that you're feeling comfortable back in those different type of clothing.
But the shorts and flip-flops have got to go back in the cupboard.
they've got to go, I'm afraid. They've got to
Okay.
go.
I can accept that. What about, we're back really then to the circle of influence, aren't we, here, about believing in ourselves, about what we can do?
Yeah, and it's right to have some concern around going back into the working environment. That will happen, and that's right. But it's then thinking about, okay, those are my concerns, so let's step outside now of my circle of concern, step inside my circle of influence, and think about what is it that I can now do about those concerns, because you are in control to a large extent. So what can I do to make sure that I am totally comfortable with going back into the workplace?
And about getting ourselves ready, isn't it? So we've got 5 top tips here again, haven't we, I think?
We have indeed.
So step 1, think safety first for yourself.
Very much so. Expect to do a risk assessment on yourself, because your employer might want to do it. But if you're self-employed, well, then I think it's really important that you think safety first, and also ask to see any risk assessments that have been done in the work environment.
And that will make you feel more comfortable anyway, won't it? That will help you with your confidence levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
So step 2, consider your journey, plan and prepare. I think it's what we've come up with there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about, in this bit, it's around, or in this top tip, it's around thinking about how can I safely get to work? Might I now have a different routine?
Yeah. About our inner self-belief, having a can-do attitude, and to talk to friends about any concerns, or friends or colleagues about any concerns that you have.
Yeah, and just be aware that talking is great. Lots of people will be asking themselves the same inner questions. So, seek advice from whoever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, step 4, trial it, get ready and change, get ready to change to the new situations.
Yep, get out of the PJs, get out of the flip-flops, and get out of bed at the normal working time, at least 7 to 10 days. That will really help get back into that routine.
And I think our final top tip is really that about the circle of influence, what you can do.
Yeah.
About who you can influence, what you can influence. Don't worry about the things that you can't influence.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about, if you've got those concerns, step inside circle of concern, and really overcome what you can. Things that you can't overcome, well then, let's move away from that circle of concern. And finally, I would say follow the gov.uk guidelines. Certainly encourage social interaction, with others at this moment in time. Get back into a routine sooner rather than later, and look back and reflect and think about, would a new routine be better now for you,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
Okay, thanks very much then, Carol. That ends our 4th tea break session.
Thanks, Sheila.
Bye.